For decades, Europe's security rested on a single promise, NATO's Article 5. The idea that, if Russia attacked, the full power of the United States would respond within hours always existed, but in 2026, that promise has never seemed so fragile. As the world changes rapidly, driven by a prolonged war in Ukraine, China's aggressive rise in the Pacific, and an increasingly isolationist American foreign policy, Europe is being forced to rethink its own defense. What was once a monolithic alliance led and financed by the United States is now fragmenting into a network of national and regional initiatives where countries like Poland emerge as new pillars of stability. Peace and stability in Western Europe were sustained by a single, unshakable pillar: the military hegemony and strategic commitment of the United States. Since the end of World War II, the United States has injected trillions of dollars into European defense, creating a network of bases, troops, and nuclear weapons that deterred any Soviet and later Russian threat. NATO's Article 5 was not merely a clause in a treaty, it was seen as a sacred law of global geopolitics. The premise was simple and powerful. If a single centimeter of Allied territory were touched, Washington's overwhelming power would be unleashed within hours. But as we enter 2026, this pillar is not just wobbling, it is cracking before our eyes under the weight of new realities. In 2026, the geopolitical landscape is defined by a series of events that have accelerated this fracture. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which marked 4 years in February, continues to drain resources and lives, with reports indicating that Moscow produced more than 1,000 new or modernized tanks in the previous year alone, according to estimates from the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Meanwhile, the U.S. National Security Strategy, released in December 2025 by President Donald Trump, openly criticizes Europe for its civilizational weakness and prioritizes the Western Hemisphere and the Indo-Pacific, leaving the European continent as a secondary concern. Trump went so far as to state that the United States will no longer carry the world like Atlas, signaling a drastic reduction in the American military presence in Europe, with U.S. foreign policy pivoting aggressively and decisively toward the Pacific to contain China's rise, where Beijing now possesses more than 1,000 nuclear warheads, according to Pentagon reports, and Washington's domestic political landscape increasingly shaped by pragmatic isolationism. European leaders were struck by a brutal reality check. They discovered that after decades of deep budget cuts and systemic neglect, their armies are now little more than display forces, incapable of sustaining a modern, long-duration conflict. Today, Europe is racing against time in an arms buildup unprecedented since the height of the Cold War. We will examine the collapse of this American dependency, how countries like Poland are stepping into the role of new guardians of the continent, and the nuclear implications of this transition in a world where Washington's umbrella may no longer open. To understand the current urgency, it is essential to revisit the past. After World War II, Europe, devastated by bombings and occupations, depended entirely on the United States for its reconstruction and defense. The Marshall Plan injected billions into shattered economies, while NATO, founded in 1949, guaranteed an American presence as a counterweight to the Soviet Union. During the Cold War, the United States maintained hundreds of thousands of troops in Europe, with bases such as Ramstein in Germany serving as crucial logistical hubs. Article 5 was invoked only once after September 11th, but its mere existence deterred Soviet aggression. With the collapse of the USSR in 1991 came the peace dividend. European countries, believing that major wars were a thing of the past, slashed military budgets drastically. Germany, for example, reduced its forces from 500,000 soldiers to fewer than 200,000, with reports in 2018 indicating that only 4 of its 128 Eurofighter jets were operational. The Netherlands and Belgium followed suit, prioritizing social welfare over defense. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, average European defense spending fell to 1.5% of GDP in the 2000s, while the United States maintained levels between 3% and 4%. This neglect created a vacuum. While Europe disarmed, Russia, under Vladimir Putin, rebuilt its forces. In 2026, Moscow spends more than 6% of its GDP on defense, producing 115 to 130 long-range missiles per month, according to Ukrainian intelligence. The war in Ukraine made this clear. Russia manufactures more artillery ammunition in a single month than the entire European Union produces in a year, according to analysts. If U.S. logistical support, military GPS systems, and satellite intelligence were withdrawn, Europe would face an immediate tactical nightmare. Most European armies lack fundamental capabilities in strategic transport, aerial refueling, and, most critically, integrated long-range air defense systems capable of protecting their cities from hypersonic missiles such as Russia's Kinzhal. American disengagement is no longer a theoretical possibility or a political bluff. It is a deep structural shift. Initiated under the Obama administration with the pivot to Asia in 2011, accelerated by Trump during his first term, and consolidated in the 2025 NSS, the United States now prioritizes containing China. The document criticizes Europe for civilizational erasure due to immigration and economic stagnation, stating that the days of the United States sustaining the world order like Atlas are over. With mounting pressure on American finances, the U.S. budget deficit reached $1.8 trillion in 2025, according to the IMF, and the existential need to focus on the Taiwan Strait, U.S.-European command is being scaled down. American troops in Germany have fallen from 40,000 to 35,000, with plans for redeployment to the Pacific. Washington's message to Brussels is clear. We will provide the weapons you are willing to buy, but we can no longer guarantee that we will provide the soldiers to fight your battles. This shift has forced Europe to consider the unthinkable, a fully autonomous defense. Reports from Chatham House warn that without the United States, NATO could face critical tests in 2026, such as the expiration of New START in February, the last remaining arms control treaty between the US and Russia. Without it, a new nuclear arms race could erupt, with Russia and China expanding their arsenals. In response, Europe has launched the largest rearmament program since the Cold War. The European Commission's Rearm Europe plan, announced in March 2025, mobilizes €800 billion by 2030 for weapons production, infrastructure, and innovation. NATO countries committed in June 2025 to spend 5% of GDP on defense by 2035, with 3.5% allocated to core capabilities. Total spending by NATO, Europe, and Canada increased by 15% in 2024 and 2025, according to NATO's own data. Germany leads with €650 billion over 5 years, doubling previous spending. Under Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Berlin approved €524 billion for 2026, with €82.69 billion allocated to the armed forces, an increase of €20 billion. This includes the reintroduction of voluntary military service, aiming for 260,000 active soldiers and 200,000 reserves. France under Macron will double its defense budget to €64 billion by 2027, modernizing its forces. The United Kingdom is targeting 2.6% of GDP, while Poland, as we will see, stands out. However, challenges persist. Europe's defense industry, fragmented by Brussels bureaucracy and national interests, struggles to scale production. Germany's Rheinmetall and Britain's BAE Systems lead the sector, but the EU produces only 15% of global ammunition, compared to Russia's 50% in 2026. Reports highlight that despite spending increases, Europe still depends on American and South Korean imports for advanced equipment. In this climate of uncertainty and fear, one country decided it would not wait for the worst: Poland. Historically crushed and partitioned between empires, such as in the partition of 1795 and the Nazi-Soviet invasion of 1939, Warsaw swore that history would never repeat itself. In 2026, Poland is executing the largest and fastest rearmament plan in modern European history. Its goal, not merely to defend itself, but to make any Russian aggression unbearable. Poland's defense budget reached 4.8% of GDP in 2026, the highest in NATO proportionally, with €46.9 billion allocated, a record according to notes from Poland. This surpasses the United States and comes close to the pledged 5% target. Poland requested €43.7 billion from the EU's Safe Fund for acquisitions, consolidating its position as the anchor of the eastern flank. In armored forces, the ambition is striking. While the United Kingdom debates maintaining 200 tanks, Poland has ordered thousands. The backbone is the South Korean K2 Black Panther, an initial 180 units with technology transfer to produce the K2PL domestically, ensuring independence. Add 250 American M1A2 Abrams SEP V3 tanks, creating a force that surpasses the combined capabilities of France, the United Kingdom, and Germany. In artillery, 500 HIMARS launchers, which shifted the course of the war in Ukraine, and hundreds of K9 Thunder howitzers. In the air, 48 F-35 Lightning II fighters and the largest fleet of AH-64E Apache helicopters outside the United States. The Navy gains Arrowhead 140 frigates and Orca submarines, while drones and counter-drone systems receive 15 billion Polish zloty by 2028. But what truly turns Poland into the new Sparta is human capital. The active army is targeting 300,000 soldiers with a focus on readiness and elite training. The Eastern Shield Initiative fortifies borders with Russia and Belarus, costing €6 billion by 2028, including ISR sensors and anti-UAS networks. Poland positions itself as the eastern anchor, filling the vacuum left by the American drawdown. From a protected country, it becomes the shield of the continent, influencing even NATO through its leadership in defense spending. Conventional armies, no matter how powerful, face limits against an adversary with the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, more than 5,500 Russian warheads. Here, the European debate turns dark. For decades, nuclear security depended on NATO sharing. American bombs stored at bases in Germany, Italy, Belgium, and Turkey, operated by Allied aircraft. But what if the United States withdraws? France, under Macron, signals that its force de frappe, with 290 warheads, should be considered a European asset. In 2025, Macron opened the debate on extending French deterrence, stating that France's vital interests have a European dimension. The United Kingdom, with 250 warheads, could integrate as well, but remains dependent on American technology. Debates emerge. Should Germany or Poland develop nuclear capabilities? A red button in Brussels? This fragmentation is exactly what the Kremlin seeks to exploit. Putin is betting that without Washington, Europe will fracture. The Baltics and Poland demand a hard line, while Hungary and Slovakia flirt with Moscow. The continent is rearming amid economic crisis, energy transition, and polarization. The monolithic NATO fades, a fragmented fortress emerges, with Poland leading on land and France in nuclear deterrence. Success depends on time. If the Ukrainian conflict expands before K2PL tanks, Patriot missiles, and F-35s are fully operational, the map may be redrawn.